Sometimes you do need the extreme emotions to help you move on. Like, you need to go through the anger and the grief and the sobbing. But I feel like in order to fully heal, you also need to acknowledge the other side, which is the good side. And you need to acknowledge that there are things that you learned, and like, not all of it was wasted time. Thanks for having me.
No, it's such a pleasure. When I was first compiling my list of guests for the Nomadic Mic when I started the show, you were on that list. Because I was like,
how much did my parents pay you?
I mean, look. All right, cut it. Yeah, but how are you, man? How are you doing today?
Today, I told you earlier that it was a slow start. Like, I woke up at like 11, and then I took another nap at 2. It was just one of those days where I was like, Nikhil, I'm going to be 30 minutes late. I need another nap.
It happens, man. I mean, I woke up pretty late today as well, partially because it's so easy to get sucked into your phone really late at night and come out of it. Yeah, that thing is an affliction that all of us are kind of suffering.
You know, one day someone's going to invent something where your phone will just be in your brain. So you won't even need your phone to scroll. You can just close your eyes and scroll.
Isn't that dreaming? I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, true.
Kind of.
True.
Kind of.
But you don't get to choose the channel.
Yeah.
But technically, the brain has its own algorithm.
The brain has its... Are you a big dreamer?
Yeah.
Do you dream a lot?
Intensely, too.
Intensely.
Like, I wake up tired because of my dreams.
They say that if you're dreaming, that means you're not getting good sleep because your mind is active. But I would rather be a dreamer. Like, I would rather have all these crazy vivid dreams, because when I wake up, I feel like I haven't just lived the 18 hours that I'm awake, or whatever, however long it is, you know?
Yes, but also, have you ever dreamt, like, traumatic stuff?
Like nightmares?
Not even nightmares. Like, I've woken up crying.
Wow.
Because, like, I just see, like, all my close people dying in front of me.
Okay.
But I wouldn't even say that's a nightmare. Because nightmare, I would think, like, it's, like, ghosts and shit.
Okay.
But, like, traumatic dreaming is, like, I feel like it's my subconscious telling me that I have some insecurities that I need to work on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, they say when you have these traumatic dreams, the symbolism in these dreams are supposed to give you clues about what to look out for in your real life.
Yeah.
You know, like, for example, if you're being chased after, that means you're running away from problems. If a snake bites your hand, depending on which hand it bites, it means either you're going to grow really fast in life because there are opportunities in your way, or you're afraid that something's coming after you. Like,
wait, did you make that up?
No, I'm being...
That's actually, like, the...
Yeah. No, because, like, I think there was a period of my life where I was just really into dreaming. Like, I would train my mind to remember as much of my dream as possible. Yeah.
Did you keep a dream journal?
I did.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And, like, you could see how from the first log that you put into the journal, it's, like, super short.
Yeah.
And, like, not really detailed. And then the more that you practice it, it just gets more expansive and detailed.
Yeah. Wait, do you still keep a dream journal?
So I have one. I only log if it's super, like, it's either super fucked up or super, like, deep.
Okay.
Like, there was one time where I kept dreaming that the world was ending.
Yeah.
And, like, there would be different vehicles. Like, there was once, it was like a rocket ship. One time it was like a big Titanic cruise. And, like, I kept trying to get everybody on board to tell them, like, hey, the world's ending. You need to get on now. And, like, it would always be too late, or it would be too hard to convince people.
Yeah.
And I would get onto these vehicles with, like, only 5 or 6 other people as it, like, leaves planet Earth, and then I'm looking down and I'm seeing the whole world ending, and I'm like,
whoa. That's a big dream. Does that happen often? Is that Have you only seen that once?
Maybe in the last 2 years, I've dreamt it like 8 times.
Wow.
But it's so tiring, dude. Like screaming to get people to like, for some, and then you see as it's like leaving planet Earth,
Yeah.
you see the other rockets around the world also leaving.
Whoa.
So there's other people trying to convince other people to like escape.
Yeah.
There was one time where I dreamt that I was like a North Korean little girl who escaped. I don't know. It was very weird.
Escape the world or North
Escape
Korea?
North Korea.
Yeah.
There was like a fence and everything, and then I had to swim. And I remember seeing like all of my classmates telling me to not run away, and I'm like, no, I have to go. We have to go.
You know, there's something really interesting about what you just said, and like a parallel I can see with your music, right? Something I've read about you online with one of like the past interviews you've done is you're not trying to be too abrasive as a person when telling the truths about life, and that's why music is really special to you, because it allows you to tell the truth in like a diplomatic, non-abrasive
like
kind
a
of
gentle way.
A gentle way. But these truths are important to you because you feel like you can be empathetic with other people, and somebody needs to speak up and say these things that a lot of people are experiencing. I don't know. I somehow linked that to you and the North Korean girl story. Like, you would know what that would feel like, and your mind is imagining what that would feel like and going through that experience in your subconscious.
It's weird because, like, you know, the term empath has been like used a lot the last few years. Yeah. And I don't think I would consider myself an empath because when I see a friend or a family member in distress, I actually don't feel their emotions. But when I'm dreaming and I wake up, like I've dreamt, you know, being a refugee or being, I don't know, some kind of like person trying to get people to escape. When I wake up, I am convinced that I know exactly how it feels, because I wake up sobbing and I'm like, it's, I don't know if it's weird to say, but it kind of shifts my mind, at least for the next few months, to do research and learn about the struggles of the people that I dreamt about. There was one time where I dreamt about like a trans person and like kind of seeing how much shit they have to go through. And before that, I didn't really know much about the like how much trans people struggle in society. And then there was one time where I dreamt about being homeless and like having to beg to just survive. And then that kind of made me do research on homelessness in Singapore and realize like, oh, even in first world countries, there's people struggling with simple things as just like getting food and shelter.
Yeah.
And then that kind of wakes me up to be like, whoa, you're in a bubble. Like you need to remember, like you're not just yourself, but you are all these other people that you haven't met yet. And that's why it's so important to go and learn about them, because by learning about their stories and their struggles and their experiences, you actually learn a lot about yourself. And vice versa. If you learn about yourself, you learn about them. And I don't know, everything's connected, you know?
It is connected. And what you said it sounds like a very mature perspective, it sounds like a mature perspective. And I'm wondering if it's something you adopted from an early age. Because I know you wrote your first song when you were 17, right? And the songwriting process, at least that's what my
first song was 13.
Okay.
But my first song that I put out was 17. Yeah.
Okay. And the songwriting process is quite introspective, I imagine.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, but I feel very privileged that my job requires me to be introspective, because the more time and energy I invest in learning about my insecurities and what's happening in my mind, the better my songwriting is. Because I've tried writing songs about things that I don't care about, and like the results show like people don't connect with it. And then when I'm writing about like my own trauma or like, you know, breakups and things like that, heartbreak, which is one of the most painful things anyone can experience, that's when people connect. Because it's like, you don't even need to share the same details. Like, you know, you don't have to date the same person to know what heartbreak feels like. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I'm very lucky that I get to monetize heartbreak and like trauma. It's like every time I find myself in a precarious situation where I'm like, this is such a bad date. In my head, I'm like, but this is such a good song. Like, I'm gonna go and write a song about this. Yeah.
I think it's the lyrics that connect with people, but music is also about rhythm and sonically connecting with people through the kind of instruments, sounds, and just generally how you orchestrate all of those instruments together. You went to Berklee Music School, like one of the more renowned music schools around the world. What was that experience like, you going in as an aspiring musician and then coming out after having learnt a lot of things from supposedly some of the brightest minds in the field?
It was the best place for my ego to die. Because when you are good at what you do and you come from, you know, Hong Kong is considered small. Like, Hong Kong is small. I also, you know, spent a couple years in Singapore prior to Berklee, which is also a small place. When you're good at what you do, it's very easy for your ego to believe that you're the best. And then when you go into such a concentrated school where literally the best of each town and city or place is there, you're like, whoa, I'm jack shit. Like, I'm really just I'm nothing. Yeah. And for some people, the graduation rate for this school is 48%.
48%.
So most people drop out.
Because it's so hard and because of the ego death?
There's other factors. It's like, it's expensive. But also, I think a lot of people go in and realize that they are either not good enough or they are not passionate enough. Okay. Like, they don't want it enough.
Yeah.
And or they realize that their hobby should have stayed a hobby. Wow. Because the moment it becomes your job, it's so easy to hate what you once loved. Yeah. And this school it either throws you into the two directions where it's like, I am so bad at this and I want to get so good, so I'm going to stay in it. Or I'm so bad at this, I should quit now. Yeah. And just like spend the time that I would spend at school on something else, like a business degree, which is like safer. Yeah. But like for me, I'm glad that my mind was like, I'm so shit at this. I have so much to learn. I need to get good. And like, I feel like because of that, I became even more invested in like, you know, meeting people and doing well at school and practicing my songwriting.
Yeah. What was your weakest attribute in creating music when you got there and you realized everyone else was dropping out?
Dude, it's multiple aspects.
Right.
One being that before I went to Berklee, I didn't have any music theory knowledge. Okay. So there were people around me who grew up with music theory. Sure. So they knew everything. They knew all the jazz chords. They knew, you know, all of their technical skills were amazing. Yeah. So something that some people don't know about this school is when you get in, you actually get rated or ranked. Okay. And there's like a audition process, and based on that audition, you get ranked as to how good you are. And these ratings help you get into certain classes. Okay. So there are certain classes that are only exclusive to the best. Okay. And like rating 8 is the highest and rating 1 is the worst. And I went in and I was a rating 1. No. I was a rating 1. And the best part is like all of your peers after the rating exam, everyone's asking like, oh, what's your rating? Like, oh, I'm a rating 5. Like, I'm going to, you know, join this jazz ensemble, whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, a rating 1. Like, and they're like, oh. And it's weird because some people let that rating dictate who they surround themselves with. Because a lot of the rating 7 and 8 people will just hang out with each other.
Yeah.
Understandably so, because, you know, they'll have jam sessions. And, like, if you're really fucking good at your instrument,
Yeah.
I understand that you don't want to play with someone who's not good at their instrument. Like,
Yeah.
there is a clear difference. But that ego thing is such a prevalent thing at music school because there's this thing called Berklee famous, where while you're at school, if you're Berklee famous, it means that the student body knows who you are. It's kind of like High School Musical, where, like, if you're Berklee famous and you're walking down the school halls, people are like whispering, like, oh, that's the guy who's like 16 and he's like a prodigy at harp, or like a prodigy at cello.
Okay.
And like most people who are Berklee famous are rating 7 and rating 8 musicians.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you're in the same room, you're lucky. You know, you're like lucky. But also, you can also see how, in terms of building genuine relationships and friendships, a lot of the people that surround rating 7 and 8 people are just there because they're good at their instrument. But they don't actually care about them as people, you know? And, like, obviously this is evident. This is prevalent in, like, all of the ratings, but you see it most when people are at the top. Because people have something to gain to be around you, right? Because if you, for example, are a rating 8 pianist and I am around you, I am basically endorsed by you.
Yeah.
Because if Nikhil plays with me, it means that I am also a rating 8 player.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Totally.
And then when people get gigs, when people get shows or opportunities, by association, it's like, oh, I know this, like, this trumpet player that played with Nikhil. So by, you know, association, that means they're good enough. So you get the job, which is why people want to hang out around you.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of people at my school, they get a lot of these opportunities because of the name. So, like, Ariana Grande will go on tour and she'll look for musicians from my school.
Yeah.
Because it's cheap. Because we're all students.
Okay. Yeah.
But also because they're good, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, I don't know, a big artist will be touring, or a big artist will do a show, and then they'll get musicians from, you know, but you're not going to get a rating 1 when you can get a rating 8, you see. But I think, anyway, all of that's to say, like, I think when I left music school, I realized that it doesn't matter if you're the best technical player or the best at your instrument if people just don't like being around you.
Would you say that was your strength, being a level 1 musician at that time? Because, I mean, you are generally a likable person because you empathize with other people. You care about people, like you said. You're not just trying to stick around with somebody from a level 8 just so you can climb the ladder quickly.
I feel like I'm glad. So, some context. Before I went to Berklee, I was enlisted in the Singapore police force for 2 years. And I'm glad that I went through that experience first before college, because most people, you know, they hit 18, finish high school, they go straight into college. But a lot of people don't know what they want, what they're there for. And, like, being a police officer for 2 years and, like, actually having my own ego be killed before college, because, you know, when you're in the police, you have to shave your head off, you have people shouting at you, you have, like, the whole hazing thing, and, like, basically people telling you that you're worthless and, like, who do you think you are? Like, having all of that before college, before the whole High School Musical experience, but in real life, helped me understand what I'm here for. Like, I'm here because I want to get good at songwriting, because I love the art of songwriting. I want to connect with people, and that helped me stay focused on like, yeah, like what am I here for, and not be distracted by drama and like people basically circle jerking each other to tell each other that they're better than whatever, and instead just like show up as myself, which means I'm showing up as a rating 1 vocalist. And like honestly, it actually ended up like being in my favor that I was rating 1.
Yeah.
Because nobody would expect anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're rating 1,
An underdog.
yeah, and like you show up on stage and people are like, you're not rating 1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I am.
That's a good feeling.
You know,
That's
it's
a
like
good feeling,
it's
yeah.
actually better that you were rated lower and did well than to be rated high and then you don't perform.
Yeah.
Because people are like expecting too much from you.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how your police experience really calloused you to the point where you became part of that 48% that eventually did graduate.
Oh my goodness.
You know?
The police experience was, I don't know how much I can share because I'm also thinking about like I can't ruin people's reputation.
Sure.
But it definitely humbled me to realize like especially in a institution or in a like organization like the police force where your rank matters. It doesn't matter if your idea is correct. It doesn't matter if you make sense and you're logical. If someone has a higher rank, you just shut the fuck up and you follow the order.
Yeah.
And like how that was brought over into music school is like sometimes it's not about being correct. Sometimes it's just about following the rules and learning the rules so that later when you do have more weight, you can break your own rules. But how are you supposed to break the rules when you don't even know what the rules are?
Yeah.
And so many people at music school, you know, they're there because they like you ask them like, why are you here? And they're like, oh, I like to play the drums. It's like that's not enough to sustain your whole career.
Yeah.
You can't just enjoy playing the piano and be like, I want to do this for 60 more years. You have to have some kind of like my great aunt who I grew up with was a piano player and she like took care, you know, you need like
a mission, a backstory,
yeah,
something
you need
to drive
something.
Yeah, when everybody else is giving up, you know, I experience this a lot.
Exactly. Even if it's just like,
well.
hey, there aren't many female drummers in my city and I want to represent that community. It's like,
Okay.
Boom, you have drive now.
Yes.
But if your drive is just, my parents had money and I like to play the drums, you're not going to make a career out of this.
Totally.
And yeah, just like being at music school made you realize that there's a lot of people who are here who don't really know what they're doing. There was this kid whose parents was like a famous Korean actor. And like, dude, he had money. I think his monthly allowance was something like $10,000 a month.
Okay.
And he lived in the penthouse of this building. And like all he would do was just like buy weed every day, go to Chanel and Coach, shop, skip all the classes. And I was like, dude, there's so many people who would kill to be in your position right now. Yeah. And like you're here just because, you know, you don't really care about academics, which is fair. Like you don't need to be good at math or science or whatever. Yeah. But like you have an opportunity to be at music school, but you don't give two shits. And like a lot of people think like, oh, you go to art school because you're bad at school, or like, you know, you just want to follow your passion. But like it's not enough to just be naturally inclined at a skill to succeed in your craft, right? You actually need to put in work, and you need to be tenacious, and you need to do shit that you don't want to do. Like when I hear people say like, oh, to follow your dreams, you just need to like just chase your dreams, or like if you love what you do, you'll never feel like you're working. It's like, no, the reality is you have to do so many things that you don't want to do to get to where you need to be. And that's kind of what I took from music school, because my school was a liberal arts school, which meant that we had to do science class and math. And I took like a literature class. I hated all of those classes, but I still showed up to class on time. I did all my homework and all of that, because it wasn't about what we were learning. It was about the principle of just being disciplined and just showing up to things that you don't want to do. Because at the end of the day, when you enter the real working like adult life, you're going to get a lot of jobs that you don't want to do, but you need to earn the money, or else how are you going to make this sustainable? And then those jobs where you can earn money will help you with your passion projects, right? It's like you earn your money, then you go and do the things that you want to do.
That's right.
And since then, like, I've had to write songs that I don't want to write, you know, like some part of my job requires me to write pop songs for like K-pop groups.
Yeah, I read like, as part of your bio that you were a pop singer, and when I read that, that just seemed off. Because I don't...
Wait, where did you read that?
On the internet, on Google.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're a pop genre artist, amongst other things.
Pop just means... to me, pop just means you are palatable and digestible to the normal average Joe.
Right. Yeah.
I think in the past, pop had a sound, but nowadays pop is just, can the regular average person who likes most genres, will they listen to you and be like, okay, this is fine? Like screamo is not pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not.
You need to have an ear for that. Or jazz listeners, like jazz is not pop, but pop is just, it just means if you played it right now, out of 10 people, will more than 50% be okay with this? I think that's pop.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, all of that to say is like, I've had to write songs. I've had to do shows that I don't want to do. I had to do a show for, I don't drink alcohol, but I had to do like a gig for this alcohol company because I just need to earn the money.
Sure.
Like, do I care about the product? No. But do I need to earn the money? Yes. And then I use that money to do things like go on tour and like actually do shows that I want to do, or like get tattoos, you know. But like I can't get these tattoos if I don't earn the money, you know. So I need to do those gigs.
Man, you know, what you've described is I think discipline is a very important personality trait, and I recognize that the older I get, was not disciplined when I was a teenager, but it's also because I was taking the subjects that I didn't see myself having a future in, you know, like the higher sciences, like all those kind of subjects, right? It didn't feel like it was part of my personality. And I think a lot of people find themselves in a place where they might not be doing something that they can see themselves doing in the future. So they're on a crossroads. On one hand, they have to do what they need to do in order to survive, make ends meet, and get that money. But on the other hand, how can you find out what your passion is unless you keep working on something until you're good enough to know that, hey, this is something that I see myself doing and getting good at in the future?
I feel like I can only answer for myself.
Sure.
But for me, passion means purpose. Like, I am passionate in things where I feel like there is a purpose and a need for it to exist. So like, I'm passionate in music because I really believe that that's my way of impacting my community and impacting the people around me. But like, I like painting, but I'm not passionate in painting. You know what I mean? Because what is my painting going to do for the world? You know what I mean? Like for me, there's no vision there. Or like another thing that I'm passionate about is like connecting with people
Yeah.
That to me also has a purpose. Like what if I can bring people together and we can have conversations about like things like masculinity, for example. That to me has a purpose. Like there is visible impact, tangible impact. But when I say things like, oh yeah, I guess I like, I don't know, pottery, but for me it's not a passion because I don't see how my pottery is going to do something.
Yeah.
But there's somebody out there who is doing pottery and it is their passion, it is their purpose because what they're making says something or what they're making has impact to their community, right? Even if it's just making like imperfect cups.
Yeah.
There must be a message there. Like I'm making imperfect cups because, you know, I don't know, I'm just bullshitting here, but like everything can hold something. I don't know. It's some like,
yeah,
you know, but to them it makes sense. And then because it's their purpose or their passion, people will subscribe to their message and what they have to say. So I think like the whole thing about you have to get good to figure out that that's your passion, I don't think that's necessarily true for me, because you don't have to be good for you to fulfill your purpose, or at least to know what your purpose is, right? Because as long as you know that, oh, my end goal. Have you watched the show called Soul?
No, the movie?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay, you should
Yeah, I'm
watch
saving
it. It's super
it. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But without spoiling it, it's basically, it was talking about how people think like, for example, music it's like their life. It's a thing that sparks them. It's a thing that like will drive them for the rest of your life. But actually, music is just the tool or the medium for your true calling. And that's kind of how I've started to see my own craft, is like, yes, I love music, and like, you know, I would love to do it for the rest of my life. But if, touch wood, I lose my voice or I can't play the guitar anymore, I haven't lost my purpose. My purpose isn't music. Music helps me fulfill my purpose.
Beautiful.
But my purpose for me is connecting people. It's healing people. It's helping people grow and reflect. And music just so happens to be my choice or my hammer. But everybody has their purpose, and everybody has their own paintbrush, or I don't know, like if it's a sword, it's a sword, or a pen, whatever. Like everybody has their tool. And if later on in life you realize that you want to switch tools, that's fine. Like I don't have to be a musician for the rest of my life, but my purpose will remain the same.
Yeah.
Like this is what I want to do.
Yeah. I think this goes back to something I read about you, about not wanting to over-identify with labels as well, because labels can be limiting, right? And labels oftentimes are something that we we don't label ourselves. Other people label us based on what they see us doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just the way that we categorize the world around us, right? We put labels on things and people. But something really, really important that I think you just said is putting a message out there for your community, you know? And community building is something we've talked about a lot on the Nomadic Mic, because the other people that have been on the show do it differently, you know? We had a guest on, Sarah. She empowers women around Hong Kong. She's built like this really massive network of women who all empower each other in different areas of their life, right? And that's her calling. She's like really passionate about that, right? Then you have somebody else who wants to transform what racing is like car racing. Okay. So like he's doing that using technology and stuff, and he's just so passionate about that one thing that's what he wants to go on to do. Your thing is about growing other people, right? Making other people feel comfortable. That obviously attracts a very specific kind of community, a very specific type of person who might be going through something specific, whether that's heartbreak or whatever else in their life. So what kind of people are there in your community? Because you must be interacting with your community quite a bit, and you must know them quite intimately as well.
I think the people that I find myself around or in my community are people that are not afraid to admit that they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're just like we're far from perfect, you know. But then that's the most exciting part, is because it's the discomfort and the imperfection that makes us want to keep growing and keep learning. And the people that come to my shows are people who know that we're all a little bit broken, and like you don't have to pretend like you have your shit together, because it's exhausting. It's literally exhausting to try to put up a front every day that you have your shit together when you don't.
Yeah.
And even the people who seem like they do, maybe certain aspects of their lives they have their shit together. Maybe they have the best job in the world. Their relationship with their family is perfect. But there's always something that is just not balanced. And that's the thing that I'm interested in, is like getting people to realize that, okay, maybe the reason why everything else is going well is because I've been neglecting something else. You know, if my family life is perfect, what about my own personal life, my love life, or my pursuit of my passion has been neglected? Maybe like, yes, I'm earning hundreds and thousands of dollars, but my inner child hasn't gone into paint in 10 years. That's a neglected part of yourself. And like, yes, you're earning lots of money, but what is it for if you're not balanced in your other aspects of your life? And the people in my community, I think I like to believe that we are just people who are okay with admitting that we are not balanced, and we need, or we like to, you know, reflect and think about how we can just work on ourselves. I think the kind of songs that I like to write are songs that are not very black and white. You know, like breakup songs, for example, there's a lot of the narrative of like, you cheated on me and I hate you and you deserve hell, or the like, I love you so much, we're gonna be together forever, like I never want to leave you. But I feel like the reality is that not all breakups need to be toxic, and not all falling in loves need to be this beautiful rosy thing. And that's I think that explains my community, right? It's people who understand that there are nuances in life, that yes, maybe I'm breaking up with somebody, but it doesn't have to be this dramatic Hollywood like crying in the rain thing. It can just be, hey, you and I shared something beautiful and we're letting this go now. Or it can also be, hey, you did cheat on me, but I also had a lot of good times with you and I'm grateful for those moments. And like, sometimes you do need the extreme emotions to help you move on. Like, you need to go through the anger and the grief and the sobbing, but I feel like in order to fully heal, you also need to acknowledge the other side, which is the good side. And you need to acknowledge that there are things that you learned, and like, not all of it was wasted time.
I think being a leader in this space where you can give other people, well, a space to be comfortable to talk about their most vulnerable aspects requires you to be really vulnerable yourself, right? Which you are with your music. It comes through your music, comes through the conversations. But that's when you do have your community around you. What about the days when you don't have your community around you? And the days that, you know, you're by yourself.
Just lonely.
Yeah.
Oh man, loneliness is a familiar friend. Like, I think like 2 weeks ago, I found myself in this hole where I was trying to convince myself that I was a bad person. And like, I had this conversation with my sister, and we established that there's a difference between being nice and being kind. And I think I'm very good at being nice. And maybe I'm being overly critical of myself, but like, being nice just means, opening the door for strangers.
Okay.
Or like, I don't know, it's just like it takes little to no energy to be nice. Even like just greeting someone good morning, that's being nice. But
Yeah.
being kind is so much harder. And yeah, I think there was a moment where I felt like I didn't deserve to be around all of these kind people in my life because I felt like I wasn't a kind person.
Yeah.
And I was asking myself, I'm like, why do people even like being around me? And I think one of the things that I do admire about myself is that I do show up as myself. And I think that's what makes people feel comfortable or open around me, is because they realize like I don't need to perform or pretend in front of Lewis. And even though that's not necessarily not being nice, I think that's something that I'm glad I am pretty good at because I practiced vulnerability, is just admitting when if I'm having a shit day, I'll just be like, dude, I'm having a shit day. And if I'm, I don't know, feeling anxiety, I will let my friends or the people I'm around just be like, hey guys, I feel this ball of anxiety right now and I just need like 10 minutes to just go somewhere and breathe a bit. And just, I find that actually makes living my life a lot easier, because then I don't need to put up a front and and of course I feel like there are certain situations where being vulnerable is actually not the right thing to do in this moment. Because it's just not the right timing. For example, like if you're in front of your new partner's parents and you need to give a good impression, right? You can't just be like, hey guys, the food is shit.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that, right? Like maybe that's not being vulnerable. Maybe that's about being honest.
Maybe saying something like, I'm sorry guys, this is too much for me right now. I just need 10 minutes in the room
like
by
you
myself.
can't do that in that moment. Sometimes you just need to stick it out and just pretend,
Yeah.
Like that's a good way to say it. It's just like, or like even say things like to somebody new, like, hey, your energy is super overwhelming, I can't be around you. Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
But I will say though that if you get to that level of like, I don't care about what other people think of me, hats off to you. Like I respect you for that. But in order to function and be like, I think a cooperative member of society, sometimes you just need to play the game and play the rules.
Yeah.
The social rules.
Yeah.
Which means sometimes you just need to stick it out and like not complain.
Sure.
Or not let honesty take the wheel. You just need to like look at honesty and be like, I need you to sit behind for an hour, and after this you can take the wheel and we can do something else.
Yeah.
But I need you to just stop.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I forget what this concept is called, but it's a South Korean concept that they're taught from a very, very young age, like kindergarten or even before that.
Yeah.
And it's to understand social rules, because if you don't understand social rules, you technically become an outcast.
Yeah.
Like if you were the kind of person to laugh at the most inappropriate times, or to talk more than you're supposed to, or to talk too much about yourself. All of these things are kind of unspoken social rules that somehow people in society just get over time.
Yeah.
Because when you are in situations where you do certain things, you realize you get that vibe from other people, like, oh, I'm not really liked when I do this kind of a thing, right? I can't remember what that term is called, but I'll pull it up. Yeah, I mean, we'll pull it up over here. But you're talking about social rules that people are just meant to kind of understand at some point in their life, right?
Yeah.
You're a man and you are very okay being vulnerable in public.
Yeah.
A very prevalent definition of what masculinity is in society is a man that
Stoic.
is stoic, is strong, goes after what he wants. And I mean, I can list an X number of definitions, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess it would be different depending on who you're speaking to.
Yeah.
But I just want to have a conversation with you about whether masculinity is defined for you, or if masculinity has been an exploration of yourself when you're put in different situations and contexts, and what it might mean to you, what it means to you right now, and what it meant to you before.
Okay, so I think in the past, I used to villainize masculinity because I've seen how a lot of men growing up have hurt a lot of women. But then more recently, I realized that masculinity and femininity actually are not bound by gender. I've learned that there's feminine and masculine sides to all of us, and the best place to be is balanced, right? And there are certain situations where either side becomes a strength and the other side becomes a weakness. For example, decision making, that's a very masculine thing. Sometimes you just need someone to make the decision. Yeah. But then things like being detail oriented or being empathetic, these are more feminine sides, or this is leaning towards femininity. You need those in certain situations. And I used to run away or try to like push away my masculine side because I was so scared that if I leaned into my masculine side, I would hurt a lot of people because, you know, toxic masculinity and all of these things that we just learned growing up or just witnessed. But there is healthy masculinity. There is divine or healthy masculinity, where you learn that being vulnerable is masculine and being strong is masculine, being stoic is masculine. All of these things are being masculine, but at the core of it all, you have to listen to like who you actually are, like your own intuition, and realize that a lot of who you are today might actually be influenced by who you think you need to be. Like there was this question which is like, what is being a man about? Is it about striving towards attributes to what a man should be, or striving to be what people think you need to be? I don't know if that made sense, but like, I think, for example, being queer myself, there was a lot of internalized homophobia that I had growing up, and I felt like being feminine was a weakness because it meant that, you know, I'd be more gay, or I would be seen as weaker than the other men in my circles. And then once I actually embraced my feminine side, I feel like I actually got more respect from the men around me, because it was like they realized like, oh, I'm not insecure about it, and that actually makes them more insecure, because it's like, oh fuck, like he's already done the work. He's already worked through the internalized homophobia. He's already worked through all that. And don't get me wrong, it's a journey. Like it's a continuous, like every freaking box you unlock, you realize there's so much shit you have to work through. But if you're watching, this is your sign to start opening the box. But yeah, I think like my closest male friends are friends who are not afraid to lean into their feminine side, because they realize that it actually has no effect on their masculine side. Like it's like, yeah, when you embrace every single part of who you are, like that's like the ultimate goal, right? Because then you get to love your full entirety. There are masculine men who are afraid to do skincare or like dress nicely because they're afraid of what people might think of them. And there are feminine men who are afraid to, I don't know, be overly decisive or be aggressive because they're like, oh, you know, I'm gonna hurt people around me. That was me before. But if you can work on balancing the sides, it's like you feel so much more powerful, because then you're in control. In that, in every waking moment of your life, you can be conscious when you make decisions. And it ebbs and flows, right? It's not like for the next hour I'm gonna be very masculine, or the next hour I'm gonna be feminine. It's like the next 5 seconds I'm gonna lean into my masculinity, and the next 5 seconds I'm gonna be more feminine. And that dance is like,
it's a dance.
Yeah, it makes, I don't know, it's just exciting to specifically see like different, not just men but men and women have that dance. But I will say, like, living in a patriarchal society has pressured a lot more, not just men but women as well, to be more masculine. Like, for example, in the corporate workforce, like a lot of women feel pressured to be you know, like stern or not show emotion and all this stuff. But yeah, you just need the healthy balance, basically. And like just tear off the layers and figure out who you really are. Like, who are you behind all of this stuff? And there was a period of time where I judged people who painted their nails. And I'd be like, what? Specifically men. I'm like, why are men painting their nails? Because it's like feminine or whatever. And I realized, like, oh, it's because it's an insecurity of mine, and I'm projecting that insecurity. So I purposely, like, I forced myself every Monday to paint my nails. And go out. And I first started out with just black nails, because I'm like, it's the closest thing to masculinity. And like, you know, it could be like more straight or whatever. And then it got to a point where I just like painted whatever the fuck I wanted, like pink on my nails, because I felt like actually the more uncomfortable I made myself, the more growth there would be. And the first few days, I remember the first few days when I painted my nails, I was like, oh my god, everyone's looking at me, everyone's like judging me. People don't give a shit. Like, in the best way possible, people don't give a shit. Like, they'll look at you for 2 seconds. And then, if anything, they will actually be forced to think about themselves and be like, whoa, like, I felt really uncomfortable being around a guy wearing a dress. And then it makes them be like, wait. Well, I would say the healthy response would be, why do I feel uncomfortable seeing a man wearing a dress? Some people aren't there yet, but at the very most, you made them feel uncomfortable, which is an opportunity to trigger growth. Sometimes it triggers them and then nothing happens.
They get angry.
They get angry.
Like a response.
Or they're like, oh, look at that guy wearing a dress. Whatever. But it's like going to the whole concept of my tour, planting seeds, right? I am a huge believer that all of us, no matter how much success or how big your community or following is, we all have an infinite amount of seeds in our pockets. And our role or our job as fellow humans who want to help each other is not to like help them dig the soil and plant the seed and water it and take care of the seed. It's actually just to throw seeds at people. And if it is the right time and the temperature is right and the season is right, the seed will germinate on its own. You don't have to do anything. Because you can't force somebody to learn a lesson that they're not ready to learn yet. But what you can do is just, when you throw a seed, you're giving them the opportunity to decide, am I ready? Yes, I'm going to do it. Am I ready? No, I'm not going to do it. And like every waking moment when you interact with other people, you can just put your hand in your pocket and just be like, I'm just going to throw a seed at you. I'm going to trigger you. I'm going to make you uncomfortable. you can do whatever you want with that. And when people follow the rules too much, going back to the whole following rules thing, this is my hot take on the following rules. If you follow the rules too much and you just blend in with society and you just don't rock the boat, then your seeds are just not doing anything in your pocket. You're not, in a very blunt way, you're not really contributing. You're just existing.
Yeah.
Which is also fine. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to like be Greta Thunberg. You know, if we were all Greta Thunberg, the world would be a better place. But we're not all Greta Thunbergs, which is fine. But even small things like, I don't know, speaking up for your needs, setting boundaries, telling people, actually, Nikhil, 5 minutes ago, I felt uncomfortable when you asked me that question. Like, just speaking up for yourself is already planting a seed. Because the next time you ask questions like that, you're going to think, am I going to make this person uncomfortable? But if I never spoke up about that, by the way, this is all just hypothetical.
Yeah. I gathered.
But if I never spoke up about that, that plant or that tree would never be there in your garden. So just learning how to, yes, follow the social rules, but also realize when you need to just speak up for yourself, like, be yourself, chase yourself, you know? Like,
Lewis, I have a question about finding your voice.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of people who might be older, like you and I are in our mid-20s, right? And some of us, such as yourself, have been fortunate to have been on this journey for a long enough time where you've developed a voice that people resonate with, and thus you have a community, right? A community that trusts you because of the voice that resonates with them. There's a lot of people, let's say moms who are in their mid-30s, new moms who are in their mid-30s that are balancing a new life where they have to manage their kids, they have to manage their husbands, and they have to manage all of their motherly and, duties as a wife, that they feel like they've neglected a big part of their personality, which is building a community and communicating with that community as well. And what I do find is men, women, whoever it is that do start on that journey, it starts off kind of awkward. Like you can see them putting in effort. You can see them putting out, let's say, content on social, but the voice somehow isn't there. And so you can appreciate them for putting that effort in, but finding that voice is a skill that requires you to hammer in.
You need to practice it.
You need to practice.
You need to practice it. You need to fail. And you need to get back up. Like, you need to, if you want to be a musician, you need to put out that shitty video. Or a content creator, you need to put out that shitty post, that shitty picture. And then, sure, you can be like, okay, that was a shit thing. But the next thing you need to do is go back to the drawing board and make a new song and put it out and then do the process again and again and again. And then one day you realize, like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this.
Yeah.
But you need that whole process of failing and then starting again.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, they villainize the term attention seeking. But like the truth is we live in a world where we do need validation and affirmation to just feel valued in society. Like, we are a communal species, right? We need each other.
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with people who you know have your best interest and who you know will affirm you, even if it's like, hey, Nikhil, like, I liked that song. Maybe the camera quality isn't great, but I actually really liked that lyric. Just that affirmation is enough.
Yeah.
To keep going, you know? So just like, you need to surround yourself and find those people who are not there to judge you, but there to just hold space for you to grow. And like, you can just show up as is, and you don't have to be the best content creator or the best podcaster or whatever. You can just be you, and as long as you're trying your best and as long as you want to improve, like, yeah. And I mean, of course, sometimes you also need to realize that maybe the tool that you're holding is not the right tool for you.
That's an important message.
Like, there are some singers who shouldn't be singers.
Yeah.
You know, and some people who are podcasters should not be podcasters. And it's not like gatekeeping or telling them like you're shit at it.
Yeah.
Maybe your calling is actually editing. Like, that's your tool. And you're gonna continue in this path, but you don't have to be the person on stage, or you don't have to be the designer. Maybe you're the model, but you need to figure out what tool you need to be using. But the only way to figure that out is you gotta just start. You gotta just go start. And you're maybe you're a middle-aged mother and you're making content and you realize like, oh, actually it's not me who should be in front of the camera, it's my sister, but I have good ideas, so I'm gonna be the behind the scenes person. Or maybe you're the business person and you're gonna make money, but you just need to figure out the tool and then find your community to do it.
Or even maybe some people aren't good at speaking in front of a camera. Maybe you're a much better person, a public speaker who works with a crowd. You know? Exactly. I think that's what I'm going through with this podcast, is sometimes when I look into a camera and I'm speaking to a device, I'm like, where's the audience?
Right.
You know?
Okay, yeah. And actually that kind of triggered something in my brain, like a good trigger, which is like, even the tool that you have, maybe you just haven't figured out how to use it in your way yet. Because even if you watch painters with a paintbrush, every painter uses it differently. And some people even use the back of a paintbrush to do the dot, aboriginal dot artwork. So yeah, like public speaking versus podcast speaking versus like no camera, you know, or maybe how you speak to your parents, or maybe like some people are really funny with their friends. And then they're just like not funny on stage. You know, and like maybe you should just be a comedian, but just amongst us. Like, you don't have to make money off of it. But that was a very interesting take on the tool thing. No, I think a lot of what you have said on this episode is super valuable stuff, and I really appreciate you sharing your introspections with the audience and myself, of course, man. Like, I've learned so much just listening Subscribe,
to you.
$30 a month.
Subscribe to the OnlyFans, the Nomadic
Subscribe to
Mic
OnlyFans.
We end every episode with the same question, right? Which is, what conversation would you hope to have with your younger self? And what conversation are you hoping to have with an older version of yourself? Regardless of at what point in time that older version is. Start with the younger version of yourself first.
I think the conversation would be around family, and I would love to explain to them that all the shit that you're going through is character building, but also the people that are hurting you or who have hurt you, they don't mean to hurt you. That's their version of love. And when you get older and you realize that, it's going to help you heal a lot of those wounds. And then to my older self, I want to ask them if or how they manage anxiety and worry better, because one of my struggles is worrying about the future, and I hope that older version of me has figured it out and they're not worrying anymore. But knowing myself, they're probably still worrying. They're still worrying. But maybe they figured out a bit more to the puzzle, the piece of the puzzle, you know, like maybe they know some like secret meditation technique or something.
I mean, I imagine the fact that you are even aware that you do need to bring yourself back to the present, and that's what you were doing on the Planting Seeds tour as well. You would draw the audience back into themselves so that they would be present for the performance, right? Like that was the opening act. Am I right?
Yeah. So I wanted to get like a yoga facilitator or a breathing facilitator to come in and just like most of the shows were on Friday night in the middle of a city, and I'm like, all these people are carrying so much weight on their shoulders, and not just for them but for me as well. Like, I want to be present. So yeah, I reached out to different breathing facilitators and yoga instructors to come in and just take 15-20 minutes of our time to just like literally ask us to close our eyes and just exist and be here. Like, don't think about tomorrow, don't think about yesterday, don't think about, I don't even want you to think, just don't think, just be. And it was actually the best audiences that I've ever had, because I realized that it forced them to just listen. And I think that's what every artist or performer wants, right? Is their audience to just listen and be present. So it was kind of also a selfish decision. Like, I realized it worked, and I was like, every city we're gonna force people to listen. But yeah, I think like I want to do more of that in the future. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have your opening act be music. Your opening act can be anything. It can be a painting session. The point of an opening act is just to prime or to just like warm up your audience to your performance. And I felt and found that breathing is actually the best way for now to get them ready for my show. It's just like do something that is free.
Amazing. Lewis, you're a beautiful soul. I'm really proud to see.
Stop complimenting me.
Dude, I mean, I've known you for a long time. We've literally gone to Hawaii together, which I think is such a random fact, but is also crazy.
Oh my goodness.
But to see who you were back then and who you've become today, and all of the struggles that you've gone through, because I was aware of some of your struggles back then, and to see how you've worked through them over the course of a decade is really inspiring. Because I've obviously gone through my own story, right? Which I haven't revealed in that. You're such a good orator, dude. You should. I'm actually really happy you're doing what you're doing, because I think a person like you should be doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience before we wrap up this episode?
There are. Let me think. Let me pick the one that I want to share or say. There is a difference between being open and being vulnerable. Being open means that you are okay with sharing things that you've already processed, and being vulnerable means sharing things that you haven't processed. So I think the more you work on being vulnerable, like, you'll realize like, oh, life is actually a lot easier when you can share things that you haven't figured out yet.
I'll take that to my grave. Thanks, Lewis.
Thanks you. Thanks for having me at the... Wait, I was going to reveal the location, but we're in Hong Kong.
We're in Hong Kong. Follow the Nomadic Mic.
Yes.
Follow
Nomadic Mic. Wait, are you on YouTube?
Yeah, we just started.
Okay.
Yeah, recently.
Subscribe, like, and comment. And share.
I need to get good at that. I don't do that
yet.
yet.
You need to give a call to action.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, okay. I've heard it way too much in the last couple of days. All right. Like, subscribe, and share if you found value from this episode. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.